It's my very great pleasure to welcome Erica Finch to the graduate training series of seminars. And Erica is the scholarly communications librarian at USU. And today she's going to talk about researcher identity management, and in particular, the ORCID system. And we're very pleased to have her here. Thank you very much, Erica.
Okay, so yes, as was just said, today I'm going to be focusing on ORCID, which stands for Open Researcher and Contributor Identifier. Okay, so if you have it, you're going to learn more about how to use it. And if you don't have one yet, we're also going to cover how to sign up. So our learning outcomes for this day, hopefully, you're going to understand what ORCID is and how it can benefit you. If you have a laptop with you and you want to go through the process, you can actually sign up for an ORCID ID today. And we are going to cover how to populate data in your ORCID record. And then finally, we're going to talk about the benefits of authorizing organizations as trusted parties. All right, so ORCID is an identifier for individuals, which is needed because names are tricky. And there can often be more than one person with the same name, or one person who might use multiple variations of their name over the course of their career. So in this illustration, we're asking Sofia Garcia to stand up. And what happens is 4 people are standing because there are 4 people in the room with that name. So let's say one of these people recently published an article on dinosaur DNA. How do we know who is who? So ORCID helps solve this problem of name ambiguity by providing a free service where you register to create your own unique persistent identifier, which we call an ORCID ID. And this is used to distinguish yourself throughout your career, despite changes in your name, in your career, in your location, your discipline, so many other variables. No matter what changes come, your ORCID ID always stays the same. So in this example, we're actually looking at the ORCID ID for one of the Sofia Garcias who stood up in that first picture. And while she might have the same name as the other researchers in that room, her ORCID ID is unique. It's hers, and it's a 16-digit number that's part of a URL that looks like this. And you can also see here, actually, that Sofia has other versions of her name that she has published under or gone under during her career, and she has those listed on her profile as well. So if we were to click on an ORCID ID link, we would be taken to Sofia's ORCID record. So if you click on that ID link in the previous slide, this is where you end up. This slide shows an example of a blank ORCID record. So there isn't really any information here yet, but there are lots of fields that you can add information to. So we see things like on the side over here, we see also known as, so the other names, what country you're located in, keywords. Also hidden under the little video box there are things like websites. Maybe you have a faculty profile you want to link out to, or a graduate student profile you'd like to link out to. Other IDs that might pop up on other websites, so you can link those to your record. And email addresses. So if you are the corresponding author on an article, but your email address has changed, you can make sure that your current email address is always available on your ORCID ID so people still know how to reach you. You have the option to include a biography. That is right up the top here, biography. That is an option, so you can put information there if you like to, but I do want to focus a bit more on these sections here. So things like employment, education and qualifications, membership and service, any grant funding that you've received, works you've produced, peer review activity you've been involved in, that can end up on your ORCID record. And the ORCID record is always evolving, so they might add more sections here in the future. But if any of you have a CV in the works, you might recognize that a lot of these headings look very much like what you would find on a CV. So you can think of ORCID as an electronic version of your CV if you want. That helps you think about what kind of things belong here. So you'll see in this top corner here where this red box has just shown up. This is a graphic that indicates the visibility options of your profile information. So the visibility settings in ORCID determine who can see the data that you've included in the record. The options for visibility are everyone, trusted parties, and only me. So everyone is indicated by the green people icon. So that means that information in the ORCID with this setting is visible to everybody on the internet. The flip side of that is that you can set it to only me. And this is indicated by the red lock. And this means that you're the only person who can see this data. You have to be logged in to your account to see it. And ORCID does like to give you control of your information and respect your privacy as much as possible. So you will see options to limit the visibility of information throughout different sections of your profile, even for individual records or the whole profile. Any questions so far? Okay, we're going to dive into trusted parties. This is where it gets fun. And if you already have an ORCID ID and you think, what am I supposed to be doing with this? Here's your answer. All right, we're going to talk a bit about trusted parties. So this, in terms of visibility settings, this means that data in your ORCID record is only visible to organizations and individuals that you have authorized as trusted parties in ORCID. So let's talk a little bit more about what that means. So trusted organizations are typically research institutions, so Utah State University, publishers, or individual journals, funding agencies that have integrated ORCID into their systems. So think central identity management or profile systems, HR systems, research information and reporting systems, publishing platforms and repositories, grant management systems, and you're always having to log into all of these different portals in order to conduct your research and share the results of that research. So any opportunity to log into a system where you have to register with your name, you have an opportunity to basically verify your identity with your ORCID ID and link that to the work that you're doing. So it's a good idea to connect your ORCID to as many affiliated organizations as possible. And you can save time by letting these organizations add your information to your ORCID record for you. So when you verify who you are and give them trusted party status, instead of you having to go into your record and add your publications, when you get published, the journal will just send the record to your ORCID ID for you. And there it is. The title of the journal, the title of your article, the DOI, it's all there taken care of for you. So it's really going to speed things up. Make sure you're capturing as much information as possible about the work that you're doing. Connecting with trusted organizations increases the chances that your contributions and works will be linked to you, recognized, and credited. So think about something like Google Scholar, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's not always the cleverest at figuring out which Sofia Garcia wrote which article, but it does count citations. So maybe you're looking at your H-index on your Google Scholar profile, and you're like, wait a second, I feel like there's a paper missing. Because Google Scholar didn't actually capture all the papers that you wrote. When you put an ORCID ID next to your name when you're publishing, that is something that Google Scholar understands. It is machine readable, and it makes sure that it's finding your papers and attributing them to you. So that's an example of a way that using your ORCID identifier when you're publishing ensures that you can demonstrate your research impact, because citations that are of your work are being properly attributed to you in the systems that count those sorts of things. Let's see here I believe we have an example here. Authorizing trusted parties, yes. So to authorize a trusted party, an organization has to ask you to connect. So we have an example of what that looks like here. This usually happens in the form of an email. It might also happen in a login portal as you're accessing a system when you log in with your ORCID ID. So when you go to interact with a system that's integrated with ORCID, you're going to be prompted to authorize permission for that institution to connect with your ORCID ID and your record. And in this example, the organization is asking for permission to add information to your record for you. So to read any data on your record, if it's been set to trusted parties only, they would also have the ability to do that. And you can see it specifies here in the record exactly what they're asking for permission to do. So under the name of the organization, so this person is signing in to DataSite and linking to DataSite. And by linking and making DataSite a trusted party, DataSite will have the ability to add and update other information about you, so country, keywords, etc., based on the information you provide them when you're publishing. Add and update your research activities, so works and affiliations. So maybe when you're publishing, you list your affiliation next to your name. And if that information is different from what's on your ORCID ID, it will update that on your record. And then finally, like I said, read your information with visibility set to trusted organizations. Okay, so once you connect your account with an organization with ORCID in this way, you can see the organizations that you have connected to in your account settings page. So you can click on your name in the corner here, then click on account settings, and that will give you access to your trusted organization. Let's see, you will see the list and the name, so the name of the platform, along with a URL usually to their homepage. You'll also see the date that you originally connected your profile, your ORCID profile with that organization. And then finally, you'll see exactly what permissions they have. So do they have read-write access? Do they have read-only access? What fields can they update? All of that information is right here. And then you do have a little garbage can, the delete. So if at any point, for some reason, you do want to remove access to your profile from a trusted party, if you want to remove a trusted party, you can do that just by clicking the little trash can symbol there. All right. Okay, I do want to talk briefly about trusted individuals. Depending on where you are in your research career, this may be more or less useful to you, but it's good to know that this is a feature that is available. So you can add people who also have an ORCID ID as trusted individuals. And the idea is that they will be authorized to make changes to your profile. So if you are ever working with a research group, and maybe you want one person to make sure certain things are showing up on people's records, if you're in a lab where there's an assistant who handles all of this kind of information, then trusted individuals is how you would handle that. And they'll be able to make sure that your record stays updated. And again, of course, you can see when access was granted and remove them when maybe you're no longer a part of that working group. Any questions so far? No? Oh, this is a really important one. ORCID works in multiple languages. So we did talk briefly about Sofia Garcia and the many changes that her name has gone through over the course of her career. But for a lot of people, they don't even use the English alphabet when they're publishing, or they have a publication history where they've used alphabets other than the English alphabet. in order to publish. So you can list those on your ORCID ID as well. So if you have worked in academia, if you have publications you want to link or affiliations you want to add, and during that time you are more commonly known under a version of your name that's not in English, by all means, add it to your profile. It makes it much easier to track those changes over the course of someone's career. So ORCID is used by publishers, funders, and institutions, very much so. And it is actually used by over 6 million individuals who have ORCID IDs. But major research institutions, publishers, and funders across the globe also make good use of this system. So over 70 publishers, for example, require ORCID IDs with their manuscript submissions, and grant funders are also increasingly requiring ORCID IDs for grant proposals. So this is a tool you want to make use of and set up now while you're still in graduate studies to make sure that you're teeing yourself up for success. So by including your ORCID ID in publishing and funding workflows, you ensure that your work and contributions are going to be accurately linked to you and not accidentally credited to someone else, kind of like that Google Scholar example that I gave. Research institutions across the globe are also increasingly using ORCID to track what kind of research is going on at their institutions and also to support their researchers and not having to constantly copy the same information into different systems all the time. I'm thinking Interfolio, I'm thinking digital measures, I'm thinking like Banner, like how many of these systems you have the same information over and over. So ORCID is a tool that helps support not having to constantly copy that information. You can bring it all from the same place. We are a new member of ORCID here at Utah State University. So that means that you will probably in the next couple of months see an email from us at the library asking you to authorize us as a trusted party to write affiliation data to your ORCID ID. And when I say affiliation data, what that means is that you will have a credit line under your education or possibly employment, depending on what roles you have here at USU, saying that you are a graduate student at Utah State University, and the source of that information will be Utah State University. So it gives it that extra level of verifiability that it came from us and it's not just something you're putting on your profile yourself. It also helps us know where you are in your careers and see where you end up after grad school, which can you say that question one more time from the start? I'm going to repeat it for the recording. Right. Okay. So I'm just going to repeat the question just to make sure that it is picked up in the recording. And if I get anything wrong, please correct me. So the question is, when you register for your ORCID ID, you're going to use an email address. And probably if you're a graduate student here in this room right now, you're going to be using your @usu.edu email address. So is that not enough to verify and give credibility to information about affiliation? If you can see on the record that the email address is @usu.edu. So it is an indicator. However, it's possible that you registered with your @usu.edu email address and then stopped updating your ORCID for a while. And maybe you've been through 2 other institutions since then, but you never changed your email address, or maybe you never made your email address visible. Maybe you never added an affiliation to your record, even though you used your @usu.edu email address. So there are a lot of ways where the data just gets a little messy. So the idea with the affiliation manager is that it gives us a way to know exactly what your ORCID ID is. Like, which Sophia Garcia are we looking for? I don't know. When you authorize us as a trusted party, we're like, oh, this Sophia Garcia, this is the one we want, okay? And then we can also add the affiliation data to your profile to say, they were with us from this year to this year. We don't know where they are now, but this is verified information and it's on your profile. the ORCID ID. A lot of universities are actually trying to be on top of making sure the affiliations in ORCID are correct. So it's possible whatever institution you end up at next will also have a similar system where they ask to be a trusted party to update your information. If they don't have a system like that in place, your ORCID information just might not be up to date unless you take the time to do that. Yeah. All right. If any other questions pop up, just let me know. All right. So we are here. So I want to talk really quickly about actually setting up an ORCID ID because I know that some of you said you don't have one yet. So when you go to the ORCID homepage, I think I've skipped ahead of myself a bit. I have, yes. I do like this tweet though. So this is someone who just got an ORCID notification about the publication of a new article a couple of hours before they even got the journal notification. So the journal is, they have made the journal a trusted party so that the journal can update their record. And the record was actually updated on their ORCID ID before the manuscript acceptance email even came through. So that's pretty fun. So we're going to talk about registering, adding info, and briefly talking a bit more about using your ORCID ID. If you have a laptop with you and you want to follow along, you can go to orcid.org/register. If you just want to listen and register afterwards, the registration process is quite quick. So I can definitely stay in the room and help you through any hurdles that you might come across while you're attempting to register after the presentation. So this is what it looks like when you click the sign up button. So you're going to have the option to enter your first name. Last name is optional. I do recommend including your last name. A primary email, confirm primary email, and then most critically, additional email optional. It says optional. Put as many email addresses as you can. So coming back to your question about when you change universities and your email address is different, you know, and how does that get updated? If you end up at another institution after USU, and you no longer have access to your @usu.edu email address, you don't want to lose access to your ORCID ID. So definitely use your @usu.edu email address when you're signing up. Also add a personal email address. And if you have more than one personal email address, add that too, because that means that you will not lose access to your ID as your email addresses change, your institutional email addresses change during your career. And the nice thing about ORCID is that any email address that is listed on your profile will let you log in and recover your account. So it benefits you to have multiple email addresses there. All right. This is the second screen that you're going to see. You have to set a password, 8 characters or more, 1 letter, symbol, 1 number. Pretty standard. There's also the notification settings. This has to do with when trusted parties push changes to your ORCID record and whether or not you want to see those notifications or whether or not you just want to automate that process. So you have the option to approve any changes that are pushed to your ORCID record from a trusted party, or you can just say, yeah, no, it's cool. Just let them make whatever updates they want. It's fine. So you can ask them to send you additional emails about that as well. And then finally, last step, visibility settings. So you can choose to have your ORCID record, again, available to everyone, only to trusted organizations, or only me. Most people say they will make their ORCID record available to everybody. That's 87% of users. I think it's more common to make the record available to everyone and then toggle only me or trusted organizations for individual parts of your record or individual records. So for example, maybe you want to not make education visible to everybody for some reason. So you can toggle that specific section off, but your overall record and your ORCID ID are visible to people. And then you agree to the terms of use, do a CAPTCHA, and you're registered. Okay, so these are the recommended basics. So your name or names, most recent employer, your most recent education information, and most recent works. So for example, on mine, when I say most recent employer, I actually have some of my older employers toggled off to only me. And I have maybe my last 3 years of employment history toggled on. Otherwise, it's more information than people need out there, so you get to make those your own choices about that. The privacy settings that you want to use are up to you. You should keep in mind, though, that the more information that you have on your ORCID record, the better it will work for you. No matter who can or can't see it, the more information that's there, the better it will work for you. Okay. So adding works to your ORCID, how many people here have a couple of publications that they want to make sure get added? Yeah, I see some hands. Good. All right. So if you haven't submitted any publications yet, or you haven't had any accepted manuscripts, make sure that you're using your ORCID at the time of submission. That'll make this process so much easier for you. You already have an ORCID ID, but there are works missing from your record. Here is how you import. Okay, so you can add works in a few different ways, actually. So the first one we're going to point out here is the search and link. There is a video tutorial here if you want to see how that works. And again, I will make sure these slides are available to you afterwards if you need to click on that. So with search and link, it's basically like a wizard that will take you through looking for your works and automatically adding them to your record without you having to fill in each information field. You don't have to enter the journal title and the article title and all of the authors' names, and it'll just help you find the articles and add them really quickly. So if you only have a couple of publications, it could be a good option. So let's see an example of what that looks like searching through DataCite. DataCite is one of the locations where people register DOIs, which you might be familiar with from your extensive works cited and reference lists on your papers. So DOIs, right? So this person is going to authorize DataCite to write information to their profile through the search and link wizard. And then they're going to say that auto update is either enabled or disabled. So this person has enabled it. And we're going to search. So this person has entered an ORCID ID or their name in a few different variations. And they have found 18 works, including this one here, recommendations for supporting ORCID in repositories. And under each publication, you're going to see a little button that says add to ORCID record. Click on that and it adds it. And bonus, it says source DataCite. So we know that this is a verified source of this information. It's not something that somebody manually entered into their record and could have data errors in it, right? Maybe they spelled the title of the journal wrong. Maybe they didn't include all of their co-authors, right? We know this is full and complete and verified information. Were there any questions about this? No? Yes? Yes. Okay. No, it's okay. All right. So on your ORCID profile, if you click Add Works, Search and Link, it's going to give you a couple of different platforms that you're able to search and link records through. So this person has chosen to search in DataCite, which is one of the platforms where journals will register DOIs. Crossref is the other really big one. So I think if you're searching in Crossref or you're searching in DataCite, you're pretty much going to find all of your publications because those are the two really big platforms for registering DOIs. After you click on the platform that you want to search through, it's going to ask for authorization as a trusted party to write information to your profile. So you click authorize. You click this search button up here in the corner, and I do recommend enabling auto update so that you don't have to approve all of the things that it adds to your profile. When you search, you can search with your ORCID ID if you published under your ORCID ID, or you can search with the variations of the names that you've published under. It will pull up the results, and you just go through each of those publications and click add to ORCID record. And then it's going to add the record to your ORCID, and it'll say the source where the information came from. If you have 2 or 3 articles that you've published and you know the DOIs for those articles, you could also just put the DOI in the search field, right? And just find the articles one by one. All right, so we can use it for all disciplines. I'm not sure what the range of disciplines we have here in the room are, but I mean, if you've got an artistic or a performance piece that you want to add, ORCID lets you do that. Affiliations. So I did mention that you'll probably get an email from us asking to add an official affiliation to your profile. But in the meantime, if you want to make sure your affiliation is listed and you want to put it in manually, you just go to the affiliation drop down on your record page and just start typing Utah State University and then select it from the drop down. Okay, it's as simple as that. You can add start date or end date if you've had maybe multiple teaching positions, if you want to add those separately. You don't actually have to fill in all of this information, though. You can just put the affiliation and leave it at that. Benefits, so many benefits. All right, you want to distinguish yourself from other researchers for sure. It does help you manage your reputation and your research impact, as we've said, by making sure that things get attributed to you when they should be, getting credit for your contributions and affiliations, and ultimately saving so much time on funding, publishing, and research reporting workflows. So I hope that you agree that you should probably have and start using your ORCID. Do we have any other questions here in the room?
Oh, thank you. So I was automatically signed up for an ORCID ID through my previous employer.
Okay.
And I was in charge of doing like basic data collection stuff that they were going to publish as part of a grant project. But when they were pitching the idea of the ORCID ID to us, it was presented as like, if down the line somebody finds out that your integrity is being questioned, or like you publish false data in the future, then we can go back through our data set and see which data you directly contributed to and then remove it from our website. Is that true, or were they just trying to scare us?
That is not a use case that I have heard before.
Okay, so they were just trying to scare us.
It sounds like they were trying to scare you, which is unfortunate because there are a lot of really good reasons to have an ORCID, and I would argue that's really not a good reason to encourage people to have an ORCID. Yeah, can't say I've heard that one before. Is this published data?
I believe it is published now, but it's through an NSF grant.
Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, hopefully there aren't any integrity questions about the data that you worked on. I'm sure there'll be some research data management workshops coming up over the course of the year if you want more support with making sure that's the case. But it does bring up an interesting point about management even within work groups, to know who is working on something, the ORCID ID being the most reliable way of tracking that, because names can be written in so many different ways. Even if you're not publishing under a name, maybe the name that you're working with within the group isn't quite what you would publish under. So ORCID ID is a more reliable way of tracking who's doing what. Any other questions? No?
Thank you very much, Erica. We appreciate
Thanks, guys.
your presentation, your willingness to help us out here. So greatly appreciated. I had the opposite experience with Google Scholar when I first signed up. It turns out there are quite a few Richard Cutlers out there. And in particular, there's a very senior researcher in gerontology. And I looked one day and I thought, man, I've got a lot of citations here. Over half the citations were for this other person. So
Arguably would be academic dishonesty
Yes,
to take
yes.
attribution for those.
Yes,
So get them off your profile.
yes, that's exactly what I had to do, right? It would avoid me having to do that, right? Because I wouldn't get anything attributed that I hadn't actually participated in. I think I just held it too far away. All right. Well, thank you very much. And thank you again, Erica.